Hey guys, and welcome back to DarkLogic Studios' Attack on Titan theories and discussions. Before we go any further, I want to give you fair warning that these videos are going to contain lots and lots of spoilers. So if you're not caught up with the manga, then what are you doing with your life? Seriously though, if you don't want spoilers, you should probably click on something else. If you're all caught up though, then let's get to it. Hey guys. So I just got done reading chapter 90, and I gotta tell you, I really love this chapter, and if you know me, you know why I love this chapter. We got to the ocean! We finally got to the ocean, and Armin's there, Aaron's there, Mikasa's there, Hanji's there, Levi's there. The only person who's not there is Erwin, so it's kind of bittersweet, but we finally got to the ocean. And I'm so happy that Isayama let us have this moment with these characters. Like, I can die happy now. But anyway, we'll talk more about that in a little bit, because I want to try to do this in chronological order. Okay, so we start off this chapter, finishing off our courtroom scene, and they're debating whether they should share this information with the public or keep it secret. And Pixis argues that keeping it secret would be doing the same thing that the Reese King did, that they overthrew him for. So they ultimately decide to share this information with the public. And they've got a few panels of people reacting to it and talking about it. And so we see this conversation between Flock and the rest of them. And we see Levi, he's kind of listening in on their conversation, and he looks pretty bummed out. Some people have been saying they thought Levi looked sadder these past few chapters since Erwin died. And in most panels he looks pretty much the same to me, but in this one panel he looks sad as he's listening to them talk. And of course Armin agrees with Flock. He's like, I'm not the one who can get us out of this situation. And Aaron's like, how do you even know that? And he reminds him of the ocean. Why is everyone picking on Armin? He didn't even fucking do anything. Except make a plan to kill the colossal titan. I guess that wasn't important. Fuckers. But anyway, why isn't anybody confronting Levi about it? I mean, it was his choice. He's the one that people, if they're gonna be angry at somebody, they should be mad at Levi. But, I mean, is his short ass really that intimidating? I guess so, but whatever. So moving on, Aaron says, I think on the other side of the walls is freedom. And then Aaron thinks of this panel, which is Grisha's sister who got eaten by those dogs. So that's pretty graphic. Thanks for that, Isayama. But anyway, Astoria gives them their medals, and when Aaron touches her hand, he gets another memory, and he's having an episode again. So then we get a few panels of a little bit of exposition. We have a time skip. We skip forward a year, and within that year, the Survey Corps had managed to get rid of all the Titans, and they've started to resettle within Wall Maria. Now, it does feel a little rushed, but if you think about, this is the final chapter at the end of this story arc, so we're kind of wrapping everything up now. So if you think about it in that context, it doesn't feel as much out of place. I think it's pretty easy when we're only getting these chapters once a month, and especially if you're reading them online, to kind of lose the context of where we're at in the story. So this is the conclusion of this arc that we're seeing right now. Now, a lot of people have pointed out that it does leave a lot of loose strings, what happened with Ymir? Did she die? What's gonna happen with Annie? She's still in that crystal. What happened to Zeke and Reiner? Are we ever gonna see Levi be sad about Erwin? And it seems like there's all this stuff that we didn't get to see yet. A year's just passed, and suddenly the Titans are gone, and they've got Wall Maria back, and it's kind of like, what? Wait, what? So, but it is important to remember that we are wrapping up this story arc. We're getting ready to start a new one. So, hopefully some of these things that have been left unaddressed in this arc will be addressed in the next one, which is probably going to be the final one. Maybe this is like some kind of flash forward, and we're going to be going back and forth between now and a year from now. Like that episode of Lost when you suddenly see Jack and Kate off the island, and Jack's like, we gotta go back, Kate, and she's like, what? Motherfucker, you crazy? So, who knows? But, I was thinking about Levi, and, I'm one of those people who really wanted to see Levi have, a breakdown over Erwin, because it was a big deal, and we haven't really seen an emotional reaction from Levi yet, even though this is probably the most impactful death he's experienced aside from Farlan and Isabel. But if we're skipping forward a year, then it seems like we're not going to see that. So why is that? One of the reasons I really like well-written stoic characters like Levi and Mikasa is because we do get to have those emotional moments with them that make their characters feel human, or the writer does something to show that they're going through something. There's a lot of different things you can do. It doesn't necessarily have to be a conversation with two different characters, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be an inner monologue. You can show what a character is going through just by their actions, which I think is what Isayama tries to do with Levi most of the time. And with Levi, he's such an emotional character, a lot of the time it's just a facial expression. And I think Isayama does a good job of kind of giving Levi those subtle moments, right from the beginning when he held that soldier's hand who was dying, even though it's covered in blood. He has these little moments where he shows Levi has a human side. If you don't have those moments, a character starts to feel boring and one-dimensional, like a robot. I always found it interesting the way Isayama chooses to write Levi, because with most of our characters, you kind of know what's going on in their heads most of the time, but with Levi, we're just kind of left wondering what's going on with him emotionally. We all know Levi has lost a lot of people he cared about, but the only time we've ever seen him have an emotional reaction was when Farlan and Isabel died. But, when Petra died, when his first squad died, and even when Kenny died, he didn't see a lot of emotion from Levi. Isayama likes to write him very subtly, and because that's the nature of his character, you're not always supposed to know what is going on in his head because it adds to the mystery of his character. But at this point in the story, I feel like we've spent enough time with Levi and grown close enough to him to be allowed a little bit of that emotion. But now, despite Levi obviously being very emotional before and during the fight for the serum, now that it's all said and done and we're at the end of the story arc, it kind of left us wondering if we're actually going to see Levi deal with this. I mean, we should see Levi deal with this. After all, it was Erwin. Erwin was like a brother or maybe even a father to Levi. I mean, they were close. He's the one who saved him from the underground and basically gave his life a purpose. And, Erwin was fucking important. And I think it seems like there are a lot of people who are upset at the lack of acknowledgement of the emotional impact of Erwin's death. And I think that's warranted. However, like I said before, we have to remember this is the final chapter in this arc. We're having to wrap up all of this stuff that's happened so we can start a new one. And we don't have a lot of time for that. So if we're going to deal with the emotional impact of Erwin's loss, I think it would make more sense to wait for the next arc to do that. And that's what I'm hoping Isayama is going to do, because then we would have the proper time to have that emotional conclusion that Erwin deserves. And if you consider the kind of character Levi is, we know he's the kind of person that when he's confronted by overwhelming emotions, he buries them. He doesn't express them. He doesn't talk about them as far as we know. And if there was anyone he did talk about it with, it was probably Erwin. So now Levi is in a place where he made this choice. Most people don't agree with him, and there's nothing he can really do about it. He's just kind of dealing with it on his own, and he has no outlet, so he's just bottling it all up. And it's like he's completely shut down. He's just running on autopilot now. And that, to me, if you think about it like that, actually makes it more heartbreaking, I think, because despite being with these characters and kind of becoming a family with these characters, he's still so disconnected emotionally from people, and he has no one to lean on. He's just kind of sitting in his pain alone. And I'm hoping that the lack of emotion we're seeing from Levi now will be compensated in the next story arc. Right now, we're seeing Levi try to bottle it all up. Now remember, we still have to see Levi's final confrontation with Zeke. He has to fulfill his promise, and he's gonna do that no matter what, even if he has to die trying. So maybe that will be when we get all the juicy emotional drama we're looking for with Levi and him dealing with Erwin's death. So last but not least, at the very end of the chapter, we're outside the walls, we're heading towards the coast. We see that wall that the Marleyans dumped their newly made Titans off of. And what's on the other side of that wall? The fucking ocean. So here we are. Armin, Eren, Mikasa, Hanji, Levi, they're all at the ocean. They made it to the ocean, all 5 of them. All of the characters that I wanted to make it to the ocean made it to the ocean, and I am so happy. I mean, look at Mikasa. Just look at Mikasa. That's priceless. I think I like Mikasa's reaction more than Armin's even. So one thing I've heard people say is that there wasn't enough build-up to seeing the ocean. And yeah, I kind of see that. I did feel like it was kind of sudden. After all this happening, that it's already been a year and we're suddenly at the ocean. But if you think about it, it's actually pretty fitting. We've actually been talking a lot about the ocean throughout this story arc. In the very beginning, when they were making their way through the woods at night, on their way to Walmaria, and Eren and Armin start talking about the ocean, talking about the first time Armin brought it up to Eren, and then again, of course, at the climax of this arc, Armin wakes Eren up and says, "Wake up, we're going to the ocean." And then he's burned alive, having this big monologue about it. And then Eren brings it up again during the fight over the serum. Then, of course, we actually saw it for the first time in Eren's flashbacks with Grisha. So the ocean has actually had a pretty big presence throughout the entire story arc. There's actually been a lot of foreshadowing leading up to this, and honestly, as an Armin fan, after seeing him almost die like that, and now finally getting him to fulfill his dream and see the ocean, when I thought for a while that he was just gonna fucking die, it's really nice, and I'm so glad that Isayama let us have this moment with these characters, with all these characters here. It wasn't gonna end up being like super tragic, like they wouldn't see the ocean, or they would see the ocean and then they'd all die. Like, I'm glad that they got there and they got to enjoy this moment. Like, these characters have been through so much and they deserve that, at least. So yeah, I think if we actually go back and reread Return to Shiganshina all the way through, which I think I'm gonna do soon, I think it would feel more connected, because it'll feel more consistent reading it all in one chunk. So considering all that, I think it's actually kind of perfect that the last moments of this story arc, we see our characters getting to the ocean and having fun and enjoying themselves, even though it is kind of bittersweet because Erwin's not there, and it's like the calm before the storm in a sense, because you know, we have this moment and then Eren's gotta be a fucking buzzkill and then be like, "Hey, those people over there, they want to kill us." Eren looks like shit, by the way. Like, he looks tired. He looks like he hasn't been sleeping. He looks like he hasn't cut his hair for the entire year. Like, Eren's been going through some shit. And I think Eren had decided not to tell anybody about what happened to the memories from Dinah Fritz. I don't know. I guess we'll just have to see about that. This is the most important thing about this chapter, though. They got to the ocean. We gotta have this moment with all 5 of our characters. Even if they all fucking die by the time this manga's over, they got to see the ocean, so they can die happy, and I can die happy. So, thank you, Isayama. Okay, guys. So that's my quick review, my initial thoughts on this chapter. Tell me your thoughts about this chapter in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Peace.